So, let me begin by calmly providing some context. In a recorded address, the Ukrainian president responded to recent public comments made by the current US president regarding the broader diplomatic environment surrounding Ukraine. Now, factually speaking, the message was not presented as a direct rebuttal or confrontation. Instead, the emphasis was on process. The president explained that Ukraine's decisions are made based on internationally recognized diplomatic frameworks and what he described as long-term national stability and security. This is the verifiable part. Analytically, and this is my interpretation, the tone suggested an attempt to diffuse the atmosphere, almost suggesting that single political statements, no matter how prominent the speaker, do not automatically translate into real-world consequences. He stressed that meaningful progress depends on sustained international engagement and comprehensive action, not just statements. I think this distinction matters, especially for audiences trying to separate rhetoric from policy reality. Meanwhile, and this is a separate but equally important factual development, Ukrainian authorities are dealing with increased pressure on infrastructure due to winter conditions, especially in the northern and eastern regions. Officials in Kharkov confirmed an operational issue at an energy facility. At this stage, technicians are still assessing the situation, and no definitive restoration timeline has been publicly confirmed. According to official statements, emergency services and utilities are active. Now, if I pause here for a moment, analysis, not fact, seasonal stress on infrastructure tends to exacerbate existing vulnerabilities, regardless of political developments. So, while headlines may be focused on diplomacy, local authorities are clearly prioritizing something more immediate, keeping essential services running for citizens during the harsh weather. Within that framework, he notes, there's an emphasis on supporting democratic practices and presenting them as a model in international engagement. Meanwhile, and this is part of Ritter's analytical review, not a judgment, he points out that during his earlier campaign speeches, President Donald Trump often questioned whether the United States should guide or influence political outcomes abroad based on American values. I think the larger message Ritter is trying to highlight is simply that changes in leadership can alter how a country talks about its role in the world. And understanding those shifts helps explain why debates about national security sometimes move in different directions over time. This is essentially an observation about how strategic language evolves, not an endorsement or criticism of any individual. And we begin with an examination of the message delivered by the Ukrainian leadership with remarkable clarity and measured control. Speaking at a scheduled briefing, President Volodymyr Zelensky set a simple but unwavering boundary. The Ukrainian constitution provides no mechanism for transferring territory, none whatsoever. He did not raise his voice. He did not dramatize the moment. Instead, he spoke as a state speaks through law, not through opinion. When he referenced recent comments by US President Donald Trump, he neither embraced nor rejected them. He simply reinforced the legal ground beneath him. The moment was designed not for applause, but for understanding a signal that discussions must begin with facts, not speculation. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the country's military leadership visited units positioned near Pokrovsk, an area officials describe as experiencing high operational pressure. The commander emphasized goals such as maintaining control of essential positions, protecting supply corridors, and reinforcing defensive lines. In his remarks, he firmly denied claims circulating about encirclement or loss of control, reassuring both personnel and civilians. On the analytical side, observers note that a Russian unit known for drone-centered activity appears to be more active in this region, adding complexity to the situation. But even with all these movements, the core of the story remains the human communities adapting to uncertainty, leaders trying to maintain stability, and individuals hoping for quieter days ahead. Meanwhile, officials in neighboring countries and across Europe have shared concerns about the broader regional atmosphere, not because of immediate escalation, but because periods of heightened tension always carry the risk of miscommunication. Public statements from European representatives have emphasized the importance of stability, restraint, and keeping diplomatic channels open. This tone matters. It signals a preference for caution over confrontation and dialogue over reaction. At least publicly, the message has focused on preventing further disruption. Beyond the official updates, there is also the life element, and I think this deserves quiet attention. Residents of the affected cities have spoken of sudden power outages, loud noises at night, and a general sense of uncertainty. Many have reported that while these moments are unsettling, they have learned to adapt over time. These reactions are not political, nor are they analytical. They are life. People are adjusting their routines, checking on their neighbors, and trying to carry on with life despite the instability. This kind of resilience is often overlooked, but it is a crucial part of the reality on the ground. So, let's talk calmly about something many communities experience from time to time: pressure on everyday services and routines. In many places, local systems occasionally face operational slowdowns due to routine maintenance, logistical adjustments, or seasonal demand. These situations are typically managed quietly without major disruption, and most people continue with their daily schedules while teams work in the background to keep things running smoothly. At this stage, updates are usually shared as part of normal administrative communication rather than emergency announcements. Meanwhile, when services operate under adjusted schedules, households often adapt. Things like staggering usage times, planning ahead, or relying on temporary alternatives are common responses. These adjustments are typical and usually short term. In most cases, service providers prioritize balance, ensuring systems remain stable, efficient, and reliable in the long run, rather than pushing them beyond safe limits for immediate convenience. Now, shifting gears slightly, technical teams regularly review equipment performance and system efficiency to prevent long-term problems. Sometimes this means taking certain components offline temporarily for inspection or optimization. While these processes are rarely visible to the general public, they play a crucial role in maintaining overall reliability. It's a quiet kind of work, meticulous, systematic, and focused on prevention rather than reaction. Now, I think it's cautiously appropriate, to talk about patterns of behavior rather than intentions. Recent developments suggest an increased emphasis on signaling stability, preparedness, and positioning at the institutional level. In my assessment, and I want to emphasize that this is merely my assessment, not a definitive conclusion, these actions appear to be more focused on shaping perceptions than on achieving immediate results. Historically, when systems prioritize signaling, it often reflects concerns about external reactions rather than internal dynamics. This is why international organizations tend to respond through frameworks of discussion rather than rapid countermeasures. And when people talk about big cities, they often picture constant hustle and bustle, energy, and never-ending lights. But sometimes, the reality is much quieter. What we're seeing right now is a city grappling with immense strain on its basic systems: electricity, heating, water, things people don't think about until they suddenly disappear. Engineers and technicians are working around the clock, not for headlines, but simply to keep everyday life going. And I think it's important to state this clearly. When temperatures drop and systems falter, even minor disruptions can feel overwhelming for ordinary families just trying to get through the day.